Daddy, will you please show us a movie? Please, Daddy.
So who can say no when they ask like that? High in the beautiful Blue Mountains of Washington and Oregon, you can find many clear rushing streams. This is the first ingredient necessary to find the elusive and rare water ouzel. It was not until after years of vainly looking up and down such cascading waters that I discovered the second ingredient was necessary: a pair of Kern binoculars. The very first weekend after obtaining these glasses, I spied a water ouzel and lost no time recording him on film. The water ouzel is also known as a dipper, and you can readily see how difficult it is to watch his movements as he dives into the water, walking along the bottom to come up with water insects or minute fishes. On one occasion, when both Mom and Dad ouzel were feeding nested babies, Papa ouzel came up with a fish that was too large for the tiny tots. So holding the victim in his bill, he tapped him against a stone until he was bite-sized. Then flew the bill of fare to his miniature offspring. In life, the water ouzel is somewhat smaller than a robin, ranging from 7 to 8 1/2 inches in length. He is never motionless, and when standing, bobs up and down constantly in a most characteristic fashion, which makes you wonder if this is why his second name is Dipper, or if he was nicknamed Dipper because of his aquatic activities. The mountain song sparrow is a little smaller and a great deal prettier than the sparrows that hang around the big cities. And when you stop and listen to their song, they become infinitely more beautiful than the monotonous chirpers you find in your backyard. Next time you're on a mountain top, stop, look, and listen for him. A botanist or a smoker could probably tell you whether this butterfly is a monarch or a viceroy. To me, he was just pretty enough to photograph on this mountain side where only a few weeds and wild flowers manage to poke their heads through the rock shale. The azure blue color, the clear short warble, the delicate size and the friendliness of the mountain bluebird makes him a favorite. Somehow, just seeing him makes you feel better all day long. Life's worth living again. His environment at high altitudes, where the air is fresh and pure, maybe helps to give you that aesthetic lift. Like all other creatures, and Homo sapiens in particular, the males excel in appearance, the females being dull and drab in comparison. The western tanager is generally regarded as one of the most beautiful birds in the West, while the Clark's nutcracker has the reputation of being one of the most busy and saucy. Frequently he is even called camp robber, though erroneously. But he loves to attend picnics and will share any morsel of food that might be tossed in his direction. Perched in a nearby tree, an adjacent picnic table, or even on the ground, he watches your every move and butts in with a coarse caw. He is the size and shape of a small crow, but is readily identified by the white patches on his wings and tail. A rare old bird, the sooty grouse, is found only in the evergreen forests high in the Cascade Mountains of Washington, Oregon, and Northern California. While he makes a palatable meal, it behooves hunters to concentrate on areas populated by the more numerous Franklin, ruffed, or sharp-tailed grouse. This particular fellow resides in Mount Rainier National Park, which saves him from the hunters. But he has the problem of learning to read and obey the Do not pick the wildflower signs or joining Yogi Bear and becoming a fugitive from the park ranger. Yes, these birds are penguins. You didn't think such birds lived in the western United States? Well, for such rare photographs, you have to journey to the northern portion of the zoo. Now here is a native. Among other things, robin are distinguished by their red breasts. They are a member of the thrush family, and bird guides classify them as songbirds, a distinction which seems to me to be stretching a point. Young birds have speckled breasts and soon attain the size of their parents. Separate subspecies live on each side of the Cascade Mountains in Washington. This is a red-winged blackbird. He is also known as a swamp blackbird, a red-winged oriole, and a red-winged starling. But no matter what you call him, he always lives near a swamp or a marsh and is helpful to man because he eats many insects and weed seeds. You can positively identify a killdeer by the multiple stripes on his chest, so don't call him a snipe or a sandpiper. He is the most common of the plovers, who are shore-wading birds, and is the noisy character who runs along the golf course, the pasture, plowed fields, or lake shores screaming, "Killdeer!" The distinguishing features of the bronze grackle are his iridescent coloring and pale eyes. He helps people by eating insects, but harms farmers by eating grain. Mallards are one of the most plentiful ducks in our area. They taste good when they feed inland, and horrible when they feed on the fishy coastal waters. This bird is a coot, or a mud hen, and is not a duck. If you see how awkward he is on land, you will understand how the expression, "silly as a coot," originated. The bufflehead belongs to the group known as the diving ducks. He feeds on water insects, frogs, snails, and fishes, and is not considered edible because of his diet. The bufflehead is among the smallest of the ducks. The drake has prominent white markings, while the female is primarily dark with a white cheek spot and white wing patch. Hiding camouflaged in the weeds and rushes on the edge of marshes, rivers, or lakes during the day, the black-browned night heron begins his search for fish, frogs, and small reptiles at sundown. If you will look closely, you can see 3 long white feathers protruding from his black crown. He is about 2 feet tall, and like all other species of heron, has 3 pairs of peculiar feathers whose purpose is unknown. 1 pair is on his breast, 1 on the rump, and 1 under the thighs. Cornered, the night heron fights with swift thrusts of his beak, but usually he escapes molesters by flight. This bird is the yellowlegs. He is about 15 inches tall and is a member of the snipe family. He became rare by too much hunting, but is now becoming more plentiful since being protected by federal law. He winters in chilly South America, goes as far north as Alaska in summer. The American swan, also called the whistling swan, is the only swan to visit our western states. Baby swans are born grayish-brown and then turn pure white within a year. Babies are properly called cygnets. The male swan is called a cob, and the female is a pen. Adults grow to nearly 5 feet long. When migrating, swans fly at speeds of 40 to 50 miles an hour. These swans are feeding on seeds and roots of water plants growing at the bottom of the river. At other times, they eat worms and shellfish. When this Canada goose reaches the end of the inlet, and you get a peek at the lake supporting his brothers and sisters, you will be convinced Canadian honkers are the most widespread geese of the West. Geese differ from ducks not only in size, but in the fact both sexes are alike in appearance and remain so in all seasons. They also feed mainly on land as opposed to water. Eating grasses and grains makes them particularly well suited for Sunday dinner, and lacking the wild taste more common to ducks. The Canada goose flies in a V shape when going to and from his breeding grounds, cruises at a speed up to 60 miles per hour, and has been photographed as high as 29,000 feet above sea level. The slow motion study shows their grace as they glide in for a landing. The various species of hawks are very difficult to determine because size, markings, and individual variations are great and overlapping. It was necessary to check several authorities and squint through magnifying glasses until eyes were blurry to detect the distinguishing features which lead us to believe you are looking at a genuine goshawk and her brood. The sharp eyes and swift wings of the hawk enable him to locate moving animals at great distance and capture them. He kills his prey instantly and is a service to man by keeping in check many harmful snakes and rodents. His victims are torn to pieces and consumed in their entirety. Fur, feathers, or bones which cannot be digested are thrown up in the form of spindle-mashed shapes called pellets. These baby hawks were photographed at 1-week intervals. They fly from their nest at 6 to 8 weeks of age. There are about 260 species of hawks. Only 17 species live in North America. Only 7 species are commonly found in Washington. Markings, size, location, and flight pattern indicate this is a Cooper's hawk. Only 2 types of eagles live in North America, the golden eagle and the bald eagle. They can be distinguished immediately from the buzzard or lesser hawks by their immense size. They cannot be confused with vultures since the vulture's head is bare and small, while the eagle's head is large and feathered. This golden eagle is consuming what remains of a duck. His body is about 3 feet in length, while his wingspread is between 6 1/2 and 7 1/2 feet. The golden eagle derives his name from the light gold marking on the hind of his neck. The Indians called him the war eagle and prized his wings and tail feathers for making war bonnets. He is also known as the mountain eagle because this is his principal habitat. Small children have never been picked up and carried to the eagle's nest except in TV serials, the cinema, or by some romantic teller of tall tales. Golden eagles do, however, on occasion attack and kill a fawn or a young lamb. More commonly, they feed on birds, waterfowl, and smaller mammals such as squirrels, marmots, and rabbits. The golden eagle flaps its wings less, soars more, and is considered more graceful than the bald eagle. They make their homes in rocky cliffs or tall trees. The golden eagles you see here have chosen this location on the lake's edge due to the congregation of ducks in this particular season. They perch in the trees at favorable altitude, swiveling their heads 360 degrees in watchful anticipation of some hapless duck who is unaware of their presence and wanders too close. They also seek the injured or crippled to make an easy kill. An adult bald eagle is immediately recognized by his all-white head and tail. He is the official emblem of the United States and lives mainly on the coast due to his fondness for fish.
Daddy, will you please show us another movie?
Okay, if you'll get into your PJs right away. Above timberline, on the talus mountain slopes, the pika makes his home. Sometimes called a rock rabbit, other times a coney, he harvests the glacial meadows from dawn till dusk all summer long. He clips all the grass and weeds he can carry crosswise in his mouth and spreads it out on the rocks near his home to dry in the sun. Before winter sets in, he will have cut and cured about 50 pounds of hay, enough to see him through the cold season. The pika is the smallest member of the rabbit family, being about the size of a guinea pig. His feet are soled with hair, his ears unusually short and round, and he has virtually no tail. Five dark stripes and 4 light stripes across his back, plus a tinge of red in his coat, identify the yellow pine chipmunk from all other chipmunks. The stripes continuing to his pointed nose, his ever-nervous, quick movements, and the smaller size make him stand apart from the golden-mantled squirrels that frequently reside in the same locale. A chestnut mantle and a single broad white stripe on each side of his body distinguish the golden-mantled squirrel from all other members of his tribe. Sometimes called a golden chipmunk or a calico squirrel, his face carries no stripes and is more blunt than that of a chipmunk. An easygoing disposition, a healthy inquisitive nature, and a delightfully friendly personality make this fellow an enduring character. A true ground squirrel, he digs his home among the rocks or at the base of a large tree. On occasion he may climb trees in search of seeds or fruit, but spends most of his time in the mountain sunshine on rocky slopes or alpine meadows. Retiring to his den in the fall as cold weather sets in, the golden-mantled squirrel hibernates during the winter months. Curled up in his nest, he sleeps for several months with his heart barely beating. In spring he emerges to seek food and a mate. By May or June, 4 to 7 little babies are born. Frequently the golden-mantled squirrel digs his burrow near summer camps and vacation spots. Here he becomes quite tame and boldly solicits or slyly filches the goods of man. He usually eats his fill, be it cake or carrot sticks, then fills his cheek pouches to bulging capacity and carries the surplus to his home, storing it for a future emergency. Flying squirrels have a loose membrane between their front and hind legs. They don't really fly, but as they leap from one tree to another, they extend their limbs, stretching the membrane, frequently gliding 40 to 60 feet. Authentic flights up to 150 feet have been recorded. He steers by raising or lowering his arms. The feather-shaped tail acts as a stabilizer and helps him make the upward swing on landing. These animals are primarily nocturnal, sleeping in hollow trees until dusk, when they emerge to forage for food. Nuts, grubs, and insects are their main diet. When danger threatens, a high-pitched bark signals the alarm. When annoyed, they stamp their feet. A low chuckling note indicates contentment. Nature's pincushion is the porcupine. An adult has 30,000 multi-barbed quills to discourage his enemies. He cannot throw his quills, but his lashing tail is dangerous to all who force their attentions on him. This porky has been in a fight recently. The lost quills will grow back quickly. The raccoon has been called the highwayman of the forest, not only because he wears a black mask around his eyes, because he robs nests, steals chickens, and raids garbage pails whenever opportunity permits. His talented hands, motivated by an inquisitive mind, enable him to open latches, twist doorknobs, and even open refrigerators. Caught young, or born in captivity, he makes an affectionate pet, though he retains some of his mischievous habits and one cannot trust him completely. He may bite, or one day run off to join his untamed brothers. This cottontail rabbit thinks he is completely hidden from sight. Poor fellow is always hiding or running, because when men aren't hunting him, predators such as fox, weasels, bobcats, or coyotes are out to get him. The tree lizard is about 6 inches in length. He is a harmless reptile and lives mostly by eating insects. His soft pads are made up of tiny hooks. He uses his claws on rough surfaces like bark, and the tiny hooks in his pads to walk over very smooth and slippery surfaces. Some lizards have the ability to pull their bodies away from their tails, so if an enemy catches him from behind, he leaves him with a wiggling tail and withdraws to safety, where he will grow a new tail in due time. Being unable to get a rock chuck to pose, we put this stuffed animal in a typical rock slide area and set the camera in motion. His correct name, derived from color and not cowardice, is yellow-bellied marmot. He is strictly a vegetarian, living on the stalks and leaves of many wild plants. The rock chuck is plump and lazy and sleeps most of his life away. During the cold winter months he goes into a death-like hibernation, and when it gets too hot, he takes a midsummer nap in a state of estivation. The average rock chuck is approximately 2 feet in length and weighs 8 to 10 pounds. While the rock chuck lives in the lower foothills and mountainsides, the hoary marmot usually selects a rocky lookout near timberline. Here he gorges on flowering plants, berries, roots, and grasses until by midsummer his bulging belly may rub the ground. He likes to sprawl on a sunny ledge after a full meal. The golden eagle is the marmot's deadliest enemy, and takes a greater toll than the wolf, coyote, fox, and lynx who stalk him from the ground. Larger than the rock chuck, the hoary marmot may attain a length of 31 inches and a weight of 15 pounds. He is readily identified by his gray-black coat tipped with white, which gives him a hoary silver overall appearance from a distance. When he spots an enemy, he pipes a loud warning whistle to his brothers, and all dart into their hillside burrows between the rocks. Due to his lofty abode, the marmot frequently finds it necessary to dig through several feet of snow in spring when he has completed his hibernation and wishes to leave his den. This animal has been domesticated by man and is known as a hound dog. Right now he has left the pack and is obviously on the trail of some wild animal, which happens to be of the same genus as he, namely Canis. With this clue, and by looking at the area he is in, can you tell what animal he is hunting? Sure, you're right. It's a coyote. Ranchmen have branded the coyote public enemy number 1 because he sometimes kills livestock. But to those who really know the coyote, this is unfair, since his chief food is rodents, and he does more good than harm by keeping them in control. Fortunately, the coyote is intelligent, omnivorous, and prolific, and is as numerous today as ever, despite man's campaign against him with guns, traps, and poison. To survive, he has extended his area clear into Alaska, where he was unknown prior to the gold rush days. The coyote knows how to stay just out of gunshot range and turns his head at full lope so he can stay just ahead of a pursuing dog pack. The large black-fringed ears give the mule deer his name. He is further recognized by his big size, stocky build, and wide-spreading multi-forked antlers. He is exclusively a western deer ranging from Alaska to Mexico and is our most abundant big game animal. It is estimated the current population approaches 4 million. The muley, or burrow deer, as the western hunters call him, prefers a partly open, partly wooded area. avoids the dense forest, and likes the mountains. His gait is stiff-legged. However, he easily navigates the roughest terrain, and sometimes when alarmed, bounds as if he was equipped with pogo sticks before and aft. Bucks grow their first set of antlers when they are yearlings. At this time, the horns are straight spikes or single-forked weapons. Each succeeding year, the antlers become larger and heavier, with additional tines until he reaches his prime. When the buck gets old, his antlers become smaller and frequently malformed. New antlers begin their growth at the close of winter. First, they are a pair of simple bud-like projections of soft skin covered with fine hair, laced with blood vessels which carry nourishment and calcium to the rapidly growing antlers. During this growth, the horns are said to be in the velvet. The buck rubs off the velvet by polishing his antlers against trees and rocks, as the blood supply stops and the horns harden into true bone. In early fall, the antlers have attained their full growth. By late fall, the adult buck selects his favorite doe, uses his mature antlers to impress her with his beauty and to fight off any rivals, and in late winter drops his antlers to begin the process of growing a new set again in early spring. The doe and fawn you see on the screen are black-tailed deer. It is a subspecies of the mule deer, which is smaller and darker than the muley, seldom weighing more than 150 pounds. Mule deer range up to 400 pounds. The mule deer has only a black tip on his tail. The black-tailed deer has a dark coloration extending further up on the back of the tail, hence his name. Both deers have tails with white underneath. The black-tail limits his home to the more humid, heavily forested coastal areas of the west. To protect them from such predators as coyotes, wolves, bear, lynx, and mountain lions, fawns are born odorless and camouflaged with spots. The doe leaves the fawn hidden during the day while she browses on buds and twigs of wild shrubs and trees. At nightfall, the doe rouses her fawn to feed under cover of darkness. The fawn learns instinctively to drop in his tracks at the first sign of danger and will remain motionless until his mother returns to assure him the coast is clear. This American black bear cub is obviously brown in color. His litter mate may be black. Sometimes the black bear is called a cinnamon bear. All three names identify the same species. They differ only in color. The black bear grows to an average size of 250 pounds, while 500-pound specimens are not unusual. Black bears usually sleep away the winter from October to May. They do not truly hibernate, as pulse and respiration stay near normal. Cubs are born during this period, scarcely disturbing their mothers. Newborn are from 7 inches to 9 inches in length, weigh but half a pound. They are almost hairless, and eyes remain closed for nearly a month. Usually born in pairs, they huddle against the mother's warm fur and hum like a hive of bees while they nurse. When spring rouses the mother, she introduces the cubs to the forest, teaches them to climb, cuffs them when they disobey. The front legs of the bear are shorter than the hind legs. This makes him a powerful climber, whether it be up a tree or a steep slope. The moral of the story is to run downhill, not uphill, if pursued by a bear, for here his shorter legs slow him down and make him so awkward he might tumble head over heels in his haste. Handicapped by poor eyesight, he is blessed with good hearing and an excellent sense of smell. Naturally timid, the black bear will not attack man unless unduly provoked. Half-tame bears in Yellowstone have learned to eat almost any food consumed by man. Their teeth are suited for either grinding or tearing. Thus, even in the wild, their diet varies from any animal they can catch to berries, roots, grass, ants, honey, bees, fish, grubs, acorns, and the leaves of plants. As evidenced by the particular individual on the screen, his main concern is to be ready for winter, well insulated with a fat and fur. You were wrong if you thought this baby was a fawn, because it is an elk calf. Many people do not know that elk calves are born with spots resembling those of fawns. This is because elk are not as numerous, and their habitat is consistently more removed from man than that of deer. You will note the head and nose of the calf is broader than the fawn, and his frame structure larger. This calf is in his first day of life, and if his actions are a little ungainly, it would seem understandable. The correct name of the animal we are observing is wapiti, as derived from the Shawnee Indians. The early settlers called this large member of the deer family an elk, despite the fact this name was long used for the European moose. To remove the conflicting nomenclature, our scientists have joined the Indians to re-establish the proper name of wapiti. This wapiti calf weighs about 35 pounds. He will drink nothing but his mother's milk for about 3 weeks. Then he will begin to nibble tender grass shoots. At 3 months he will be almost weaned. At 1 year old, he will probably tip the scales around 700 pounds. Now our little wapiti is 1 week old, and he follows his mom without difficulty. At one time, this was a common sight over our entire country. It was estimated the wapiti numbered 10 million when the white man came to this country. Slaughtered for meat and hides, we now have less than 200,000 in the United States. Records indicate the last wapiti of the eastern variety was killed in the mountains of central Pennsylvania in 1867. Civilization has taken up so much of the wapiti's domain that he no longer has sufficient winter grazing land. It has become necessary to set aside special feeding and refuge areas in the valley bottoms and foothills so the wapiti herds may survive when the heavy snows at higher elevation makes feeding there impossible. The wapiti is the most polygamous deer species in the world. In late fall, a strong and clever bull may gather up a harem of as many as 60 glamorous females, while the average bull may have to be content with a mere dozen cows. Tossing his antlered head, which may now boast a rack 5 feet in length, he bugles triumphantly across the mountain meadow. He will fight any other bull to maintain his harem until the rutting season is over. Then, with the first heavy snows, he starts his group toward the lower lands. Following well-defined migratory routes, the group join each other to form sizable herds where all sexes and all ages forage together peacefully during the winter months. Wapiti can easily be recognized from deer by their much larger size. When running directly away, the straw-colored tail and rump patch are obvious identification. Coming toward you, the head is broader. The hair is shaggier in appearance and much darker in color. Broadside, the wapiti shows his shaggy mane, the grayish-brown coat, and darker legs. In the bull, the antlers are much more massive and extend back over the body to a greater degree than in the buck. The wapiti is prized by the hunter for many good reasons. First, he is twice or thrice the size of an average deer. Thus he makes a more impressive kill and provides a great deal more meat. And the meat is generally conceded to be more palatable than that of deer, comparing favorably with beef when properly handled and prepared. Being more rare than his common deer cousin, he is more treasured. Lastly, he generally lives in very inaccessible country, and the effort to successfully hunt him makes the achievement an excellent tale that may oft be repeated. The meadowlands of the mountains in the Sinlahecan Range provide an ideal area for man's attempt to re-establish the bighorn sheep in the mountains of Washington. In prehistoric times, it is estimated over 1 million bighorns roamed the western mountains. Though disease, parasite, and a few predators have taken a heavy toll, the trophy value man has given the ram's grand curling horns are the principal reason that today fewer than 20,000 bighorns remain in North America. It seems incredible man's quest to kill this completely inoffensive animal could result in its near extinction when one recalls the bighorn crossed to our country from Asia before the sea washed out the Bering Strait, that they grazed with camels, watched the saber-toothed tigers, saw the ponderous mammoths, and survived the Ice Age. The bighorn sheep do not have wool as do domestic sheep, but are covered with a coat of hair similar to that of a deer, and belong to the cattle family. Very sure-footed, they jump and climb easily in the most dangerous places. When threatened by wolves or coyotes, they escape to safety by racing to the heights far above them. Old sheep, with teeth worn to the gums, slowly starve and weaken. Only then do they become easy prey to their enemies. The ewes take complete care of the lambs, nursing them, guarding them, teaching them to feed, find water and salt licks, how to butt and climb for their own protection. Meanwhile, the rams lead an ideal bachelor life. Deserting their ewe friends after the mating season, they loaf around all spring and summer, enjoying the high mountains. In 1960, the Washington Game Commission transplanted some of these animals to the Blue Mountains in the southeastern part of our state. Combined with the Sinlahican Rehabilitation Program, it is anticipated in the next decade or two, sufficient numbers may be available to offer limited hunting. But more important, it may be that the true sportsman and naturalist may once again enjoy the unique sight of watching the bighorn practice his famed acrobatics as he negotiates with ease the most rugged sections of our mountains. The lofty peaks and rocky cliffs of the high Cascades are the favorite home of the mountain goat. Here the wild and whiskered mountaineers live in peaceful solitude, disturbing no one, in areas so barren, with footing so treacherous, and food so sparse that other animals cannot exist. It is said even the birds shun the goat's retreat. The mountain goat is the hardiest of all hoofed animals in North America and adapts himself to any season. In midsummer he sheds his heavy winter coat and seeks his dust beds by day to lie in the cool earth. When the flies or ticks bother him, he sends up a spray of dust with a roll or a kick. The mountain goat has a stiff-legged gait, but he is a very careful climber and plods along the scantiest ledge. He looks before he leaps and rarely makes a misstep. His concave suction-cupped toes are specially designed to cling to precarious footholds. Kids are born in early spring. Generally, the nanny has one, but twins are not unusual. 10 minutes after birth, the baby kid can stand. Within 30 minutes, he can jump. Within a few days, he can follow mom wherever she might choose to go. Some of our first explorers decided these animals were white buffalo. Lewis and Clark called them mountain sheep. Captain Cook thought they were white bear when the Indians brought him mountain goat skins. Actually, the mountain goat is a member of the antelope family and is closely related to the alpine chamois. Mountain goats customarily live in herds, usually led by a wild old billy. They take turns watching so no ambitious mountain lion or lynx will prey upon them, or an eagle snatch an unguarded kid. The rest of the herd meanwhile forages on alpine plants, mosses, and scrub. They remain in the same rocky ramparts all year, journeying only several miles from home in search of food or to descend to the valleys for mineral licks. Like other species of antelope, both the female and male have horns consisting of a single spike. The billy uses his to threaten a rival for the affections of his nanny love, stands his ground pugnaciously, maneuvering stiff-leggedly, sparring awkwardly, but never aggressively unless he is cornered and pushed into a fight. Then one deadly thrust can disembowel his opponent and pitch him over a cliff, be it another obnoxious billy, a foolish hunting dog, or a hungry cat. When ice covers the creeks and snow covers the ground to indicate Old Man Winter has come, he grows a luxurious coat that protects him from the fiercest storms. His fleecy underwear is 3 to 4 inches deep and compares to blended cashmere wool. In this season he gains his greatest magnificence and is indeed a majestic sight to behold. One glimpse is ample reward for a hard climb to his domain. Up with caution, goats will frequently permit you to come within reasonable distances, particularly in areas where they have not been hunted by man. Seeing them, you are instantly thankful that they have, of all animals, been least affected in number and character by an ever-engulfing civilization.
He has made her happy. God created on every great one.